Hey guys, Brycen with Trick Tools here, and we have a project that we're working on that we wanted to show you guys and be able to show you guys some of the steps as far as shaping door skin. So we had a customer that came to us, the local guy that just had these doors for a Model T that he lengthened about 3.5 to 4 inches, and obviously the skin wouldn't work at that point. He just wanted us to make a new skin for him that he could weld in himself. So I've got this one already made, so shaped this one up, got it all fit in here like it's supposed to be, so you can see what we're going for here. This is what he brought us. So I now have our flat piece of sheet metal that we'll be starting with already cut out, and then we'll, as we shape it, obviously we'll keep fitting it back and forth between the machine and the door here. So yeah, just a quick project to show you guys how English wheel works. Also planishing hammer, we'll be doing a little mix of the both, even a tiny bit of shrinker stretcher on there as well. So hopefully you stick around to see the progress on this, and we'll show you guys how this works. All right, so we're starting out, like I said, with our flat piece of sheet metal. We're going to start off in an English wheel here, and actually to get going, because this panel does not have a ton of crown in the panel, it just has a real low crown. We're not going for a ton of shape. I'm going to be picking the anvil here, 3-inch anvil, that basically they go from flat and progress up there in radius. So we're going to go with the first anvil that has the little bit of radius on it, which is the this would be the 24-inch radius on this anvil here. So you notice the 3-inch anvils here have this little flat spot in the middle, and what that does is it allows you to cover a little more ground as you're wheeling. So if you think about it, kind of like a as Ron Cavell puts it, as you're mowing your lawn. So if you've got 10 acres to mow and you're doing it, let's see, these are our 2-inch anvils, these are true radius. So if you started out with an anvil like this, the contact spot on the anvil is really tiny. So if you think about the two of these like a lawnmower, and they're different sizes. So if you've got 10 acres to mow, if you're using a true radius, it'd be like using a little 24-inch push mower to mow your 10 acres, whereas you got this flat spot here, and it's going to cover more ground and allow you to you know, get that lawn mowed a little bit faster. So we'll be putting this anvil in here. Like I said, it's the 24-inch radius on this one here. Now, the next thing I always do on a panel is just put a little bit of an oil on there. You can use WD-40, use Gibbs oil, any of that kind of stuff. There's different things you can put on here just to add that little bit of lubrication on the panel. Keeps your dies in your anvils lubricated. Yeah, you're rolling it through there with pressure, but it just helps keep everything in good shape and allows everything to roll smoothly through. So this, I'm just using a little WD-40, so we'll just mist a little bit on here. Not a ton. I don't like to do a ton. Just enough to keep everything slick. And yeah, so basically the way this panel is here, this is the top of the panel, so it's going to sit like this when it's done on the door skin. So what I'm going to be doing first, because we're going for a low crown in the entire panel, I'm going to start off by English wheeling in an X pattern. So I'm going to go across the panel this direction, and then we'll go this direction, and then we'll do a little bit this way, a little bit that way, and basically start working on that crown through the whole panel. So So you can see here after the first wheeling, all I've done is this direction. We're getting a little bit of crown in the panel, but if you notice, I started in the middle, went to the side, went back, went to this side, went back, and then spent a little more time in the middle. And that's because as you're trying to wheel this crown into the panel, most of the stretch needs to happen in the middle of the panel, because that's where your curve is going to come from. The more it's stretched here, the more the whole entire panel is going to curve up. So I'll do the same this direction. We'll turn it, go this way. I'll start in the middle, work my way out, work my way back to the middle, out, back to the middle, spend a little more time in the middle, and get that stretch going. So. So I've wheeled both directions. It might be kind of hard to see on camera, but I am getting a little bit of the curve in both directions that I'm looking for. But I still need a little more of the contour in the middle of the panel. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to start off. I don't really need to stretch the sides as much, because those are going to need to stretch less as you're working through the panel. So what I'm going to do is actually start kind of, I would say about 3/4 into the panel this direction, 3/4 in this direction is where I'm going to start. So we'll go ahead and tighten up the wheel there. And you might be wondering, oh, how much pressure are you using on the wheel? For something like this with a low crown, with a pretty flat anvil, I'm not using a ton of pressure. I mean, I'm using enough to get the work done, but not using a ton to be able to just really stretch with every pass, because especially with a low crown, if you go too hard too fast, you leave lines in the panel, and then you have to try to clean those up, which becomes harder the lower the crown in the panel is. So not using a ton of pressure, just basically making contact and then putting a little bit of extra pressure on the kick wheel at the bottom here to be able to get that little bit extra pressure to do some stretching. So I always find it easier to stretch a little bit to start and work through it that way, because if you go too hard too fast and mess it up, then sometimes it's too hard to come back from. So lighter pressure, maybe some more strokes, sneak up on the shape that you're trying to achieve, and then go from there. You can always apply more pressure. It's hard to stretch something and then apply less pressure to bring it back into shape. That's not really something that's doable. So start with less pressure. I'll be actually wheeling in kind of an X pattern this way too. I'm going in the same direction as the panel here, side to side, but I will be turning it 90 degrees and going the other way. So I'll be Xing across the same pattern that I'm making right now. So get about 3/4 of the way in, down both sides. I'm going to go ahead and wheel back. I'm going to go ahead and rotate the panel. Now you might be able to see it on camera. This panel has got some looseness to it, and it's because as you stretch it, it starts to, the panel wants to spring different ways, because of, obviously as I'm getting the stretch on the middle of the panel, there's more material in the middle of the panel than there is around the edges, which then it causes a little bit of load in the panel, so to speak, which is why it gets some looseness to it. But that's okay when you're wheeling. If you get that in the panel, let's say like once you put it on the car, it's kind of loaded, not really achieving the shape you want. There's different ways to achieve taking that out. But all right, so there's a little bit of cross wheeling there. I'm gonna go ahead and fit this back on the door. All right, so drop the skin back on here. Obviously when I made this, I made it a little long. You can see it's oversized around there. We'll trim it up once we get it closer to the shape. I'm a little bit up in this corner. It's sitting down here, and I'm still a little bit up in this corner. So the door isn't an even contour all around. It's not just a uniform shape. So there's actually probably a little bit more curve this way, corner to corner in the door, than there is this way. This way is probably a little more flat. This way's got more contour. So what I'll do is we'll English wheel a little bit more back and forth this direction to kind of help that shape get these corners to lay down. And once they're laying down a little bit closer, then we'll actually start trimming some of the edges to really get it to sit where we want it to just ensure that as we're shaping and it's fitting the door exactly how we need it to, that it has the contour that will match this first one that we made. So we'll keep shaping here, and after I get done this way and we figure out what's next, we'll be jumping over to the planishing hammer. I do like to mix the two a little bit. I find that the planishing hammer with the right die setup in it can actually smooth out the panel and make your shapes a little more uniform, as opposed to the X cross wheeling and all that kind of stuff. You can actually smooth it out that way. So we'll keep going. All right, so in a matter of a couple minutes, we're starting to get this crown in here that we're looking for. It's really close. I'm still a little bit up over here, but that's fine. It's sitting here, but that's obviously up on that extra body line here. Hair up here, but overall pretty good around most of the part. So what I'm gonna do now is jump on the planishing hammer to kind of skim the whole panel. I did the same thing here. And it really just brings out the contour that I've already put in the panel. Kind of what I've found is by doing that, you know, when you're moving an English wheel, you're only stretching in a line. And whatever line you're going this way, it's mainly gonna curve against that line. So if your line is this way, it's trying to put curve in it this direction along that line. So the planishing hammer though, because it's a round die and the crown and the contact area is technically a round spot, it curves in all directions. So by using an extremely flat lower die in the planishing hammer, it accentuates the curve that's already been put in there by the English wheel, and to me it helps smooth it out. Now you're going to get a lot of different schools of thought on this stuff, and that's just fine. The coolest part about metal shaping is that there are different ways to do things, and if you find a way that works for you and you find something that you really like, the way it all works out, you can use it. So I don't think there's any 100% right, 100% wrong ways to do things when it comes to combinations of machines you're using and that sort of thing. So we'll throw this in the planishing hammer and smooth this panel up here. So I'm using a 36-inch radius lower die to start here. And then I'll be probably switching to a 24 because that would actually match the anvil that I had in the English wheel. So the 36 is just to kind of smooth up some shape on here initially, and then the 24 if I need to go a little bit further. So always, you know, wear ear protection when you're using a planishing hammer. Extremely loud, and you need to save your hearing for the better things in life. So yeah, we'll go ahead and run this through the planishing hammer. I've got the machine turned down just a little bit because I'm more or less smoothing and not trying to really stretch the metal a ton. So ran this thing through the planishing hammer. And what I find the planishing hammer does, you know, the shape that I put in it, like I said, with the English wheel, the planishing hammer just tightens up the whole panel just a little bit. It gives it more of a uniform contour. I guess it accentuates the work on the wheel enough to just give it that uniform contour and tighten up the panel. Like when I talked about the looseness on the English wheel, after running through the planishing hammer, there's not a whole lot of looseness. Yeah, I can twist the panel, but it's not like springy, like it's loaded in any way. It's kind of just sitting there where it's, you know, where the shape is that we wanted it. So getting a nice contour here. Probably at this point I'm going to start trimming up some of the edges just a little bit so I can guarantee that, okay, it fits this edge the way I want it, it fits this edge the way I want it, and we'll keep shrinking the panel down a little bit. We'll be able to change a few edges using a shrinker stretcher, and we'll go from there. All right, so I just ran the edges of this in the shrinker stretcher, and I did that because kind of what it does, as you stretch a panel out, like I talked about before, you know, sometimes you get a little bit of looseness and wobbliness in the panel, basically because you've stretched all this and the panel is trying to find its happy spot, where it sits, and it's just, that's where it is, that's where it's going to be. So what I did with the shrinker was to bring it around the edges and kind of tightening up the edges, so to speak, so that the panel just sits. So now I can hold this now, and I really can't do a whole lot with it. It doesn't really spring or flop or you know, have any kind of wobbliness to it, because the center is stretched to create the curve and the contour, and the edges are shrinked in a way that it was just a little bit of shrinking to kind of squeeze the edges together, tighten them up, and kind of keep that shape in the panel. So now that we're at that point, basically what I'm going to do now is start to really trim up these edges to get them to sit down where I need it to, just like this one does here. So we'll get, you know, these couple getting fit, and basically at that point, once we get it to sit down where it needs to, if we need to do any last second fine-tune shaping to really get everything to sit where we need it to, we can do it at that point. So we'll keep shaping. All right, so we've got the shaping done on this thing. It lays in here pretty nice. I'm gonna do a little bit of trimming right here on the edge to get it to sit down inside of this bead on the edge of the door here. And once that's done, this door skin is wrapped up, and we can give these back to the customer. So. Well, I'd say this was the look we were going for here. So now at this point, we can get back to the customer and he can finish what he wants to do on these doors. So hopefully this video gave you guys a little bit of tips on you know, how to roll out a door skin or any other low crown type panels, and how to fit them into a certain area. So thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.